to the Buddha, who awoke nearly 2,600 years ago. And here we are celebrating that awakening and its effect on our lives. So thank you, everyone, for your earnest, steady practice at this session. And welcome to those who are just joining us this evening. So with all this talk of Samadhi, you might be wondering or worrying that your own experience falls short of this word. We can only bring our own understanding to any word we hear. So we may assume that it means something other than what it's intended to point out, what it's pointing to. We add our own meanings to words. Samadhi is a word like this. Samadhi. The potential trouble with hearing a Dharma talk is the specific language of Zen. It can reveal and give life, but it can also take it away. The language of Zen can render your own experience more intimate and immediate, but it also can trigger the comparing and conceptual mind in a sense of we compare our own ordinary experience to the words that are used to describe experience. And this can stir up quite a sense of disquiet or a self-critique that we are falling far short of expectations. This isn't unusual in sesshin or in Zen practice. It's really can be one of the hindrances. So I suggest that tonight you just listen to the words and let them flow through. Let them go on their own way, just as you let your own thoughts flow through during Zazen. And perhaps there'll be something offered up in these words that click for you and allows you to connect even more minutely with your own experience. Maybe my experience will mirror your own experience. That's why we talk at all in a retreat. And that's our inspiration, what we hope for in these talks. So during sesshin, I and Sato and all of us also are studying our own experience. I am studying my own experience and strive to become even more precise in how I speak about it. And I know I fall short, but I do my best. And that's how we approach this practice. We just do our best. We bring our whole self and our whole heart to the moment. And we return when we have forgotten. A verse such as Precious Mirror Samadhi is an ancient teacher whose language brings with it a density of meaning. As Sato mentioned in her talk, so much is condensed into this poem. So it's up to us to draw the words of the verse out from their dark print into the living light of our own current life. Using the method, the Zen method, developing steadiness of concentration. So when I think about this, I think about dogs that I know. Maybe you have one. When you say stay, and then the dog stops, though all its fibers are twitching at the ready for more action. But eventually, doggy may lie down when it realizes that this stay is what is happening. And we can be just like the dog when we sit for a period of Zazen. In Zazen, we stay. and we stay. We stay here, steady, until the mind gets it and simply settles down in the now. And after a while, we relax, and the mind simply opens when it's ready. Our awareness in the present opens. And we notice what we may not have ever noticed before about our experience, about what's going on in this moment, in this body. It's kind of like when we go for a walk in the fog, and somewhere along the line, you realize that you're soaked. It's like that. Somewhere along the line, the mind opens of its own. Awareness opens wider, quite naturally, because it is its nature. And we notice that what is always right here. So that's why we say in our instructions, stay here, stay here. It's as simple as that. Stay right here. Stay right here. There's a segment of the Precious Mirror Samadhi that we've been chanting that has always puzzled me. So I'm going to take it up in this talk tonight for my own learning, and hopefully will contribute something to yours. The lines I offer are, or I'm referring to, are in the Illumination Hexagram, apparent and real interact. Stacked together, they become 3. The permutations make 5, like the taste of the 5-flavored herb, like the Five-Prong Vajra. I've chanted that for years. So during this session, I've been contemplating it, studying it. This rather obscure sounding section is considered the turning point in this entire verse. And it expresses an important opening into a full realization of the way, the Buddha way, the mind of awake awareness, the full extent, the infinite extent of the realm, the cosmic realm. The Illumination Hexagram expresses the relationship of form and emptiness as it pertains to the journey in realizing what it means for our own life. This hexagram expresses Buddha nature in its radiance. The quality of precious mirror samadhi. As Sato laid out in her talk last night, precious mirror samadhi is not relative samadhi. This is not a light state of concentration. It is not, as she pointed out, a state or an experience that comes and goes. It always is so. It is fundamental. One Roshi wrote, it penetrates the whole body, from the highest heaven to the deepest hell. All realms are illuminated perfectly. Nothing interferes with Buddha nature. Nothing lies outside. Because it is not conceptual, it is particularly tricky to express and to wrap our minds around, because it is not about that. So images are used. And the images in this poem express awakening into samadhi and the profound and complete inclusiveness of all of Buddha nature. It begins with the line, in the Illumination Hexagram. So let's slow down a bit here to look into what the Illumination Hexagram specifically refers to. You may recognize that Tozan is borrowing this symbol from the I Ching. Hexagrams in the I Ching use solid and broken lines in combination of threes, called trigrams, to describe the interactions of active energies, yang energies, and receptive energies, yin. So a solid line in these hexagrams represents yang, and a broken line represents yin. It's sometimes called an open line, which actually suits it if it is representing, if it's expressing the openness of yin, the receptivity. There needs to be an opening for receptivity to happen. The journey of spiritual awakening involves direct and personal insight, yours and mine, into the yin and yang energies of our life, of our fundamental life, and the details of life, the particulars of life, the contingent. These are the terms that are used, the essential and the contingent, the absolute and the relative, into the so-called opposites, enlightenment and delusion, or samsara and nirvana, or ordinary mind and awakened mind. These words, these pairs of concepts run through the teachings and pointing us to what we are awakening to, what we are seeing into the nature of in our own experience as embodied body, heart, mind, human beings. And as our experience opens up during a life of practice, our relationship to these energies change. This hexagram represents here the path of spiritual insight, which leads us to clarify how opposite energies interact and actually rely on each other. These pairs of opposites rely on each other. There is no nirvana without samsara. There is no wisdom without vexation, without difficulties. There's no wisdom without suffering. There's no nirvana independent of samsara. We can come to appreciate the profundity of that simply through living with eyes and heart open. It's so true. One commentator adds here that the meaning of this trigram refers to how extremes veer from the central channel of what is. Off-center and center, which is another form of separation into two, isn't it? The central channel and off-center. So what is the Illumination Hexagram specifically? It's made up of two trigrams, 3 lines each, and it is the same trigram stacked. So the trigram, I won't draw, I can't draw it here, but I'll do it with my fingers, is a solid line, a broken line or an open line, and another solid line. And then below it, a repeat of the same, a solid line, an open line, and a solid line, signifying the vitality of light and dark, signifying how essential and contingent interact, what changes and what stays the same, what is generally underlyingly unmanifested, and what is particular and manifested, what is manifest and what is hidden. What is your life? What in your life is manifest? All the forms that it takes, material and immaterial. The stuff of life, the material belongings, and people, and trees, and plants, and animals, etc. And then immaterial, anything that just appears in the mind, thoughts, feelings. So how does samadhi function in awakening to our true and complete life? Well, we could say that samadhi clears out the clutter and allows us to be intimate with just the one thing. An example of this, of how this works, is Samu. Think about how it is during Samu when you have just one task to attend to, just one thing. Each detail on that cluttered counter, each tangled root in the blackberry thicket, or the honeysuckle vine taking over the front gate. Each thing has its own life, has its own form. As we pay more precise attention and we become more intimate, more discerning, and can see more clearly how to attend to each, we can do it in the best way. Another example, of course, is eating. We call it eating practice. Eating practice is really just one bite at a time, one dish at a time, one flavor at a time. Or maybe there are 3 flavors in this bite. The world is shown to us in all of its many, many forms. And the world that seems divided in two, into me and here and the world out there, is brought all together in the one, in samadhi. The one undivided, immediate now. Jeweled mirror samadhi. Jeweled mirror samadhi is the source of the classic teachings also about the general stages of awakening. Awarenesses that become integrated and change us, and how we experience the world and function in the world as we deepen our awareness and our awakening. So the Illumination Hexagram symbolizes this unifying process in its 2 trigrams, which are stacked together. The lower trigram is the inner self, while the upper trigram is the outer world. Having clarified the self, one can bring clarity to the world. This form that it takes is very stable, very grounded, very stable. Stacked together, they become 3, and the permutations make 5. So we can picture this, a single trigram, line and broken line, line. And then we stack them together, and what that comes out is unbroken line, broken line as one pair, and then the middle pair is unbroken line and unbroken line, and then the bottom of the 3 is broken line and solid line. So there's the 3. That's how they become 3, right? The permutations make 5. So those 2 patterns are repeated, and as many patterns are in our own lives. 5 different ways to reorder those components. 5 ways, 5 stages of awakening, also known as the 5 ranks, is really what this is pointing to. How what is beyond thinking works with thinking. This hexagram may have 5 permutations, but in our own experience, we could say that stacked together, light and dark don't only become 5. The permutations of light and dark in our own lives take infinite forms. All of the troubles, all of the particulars, all of the troubles, all of our miseries and confusions and disappointments, fears, all the joys and the burdens and the freedom that comes from awakening insights When we see into something, we go, oh, we realize something about our own mind. We see something we hadn't noticed before, we hadn't realized before. These moments proliferate in practice. Sometimes there's a long stretch where they don't. That's not unusual. But over time, we have many moments where we go, oh, I see. Form and reflection behold each other. Form and reflection behold each other. That's a mysterious phrase. Form and reflection behold each other. Notice in it that there's no one in that formulation. There's just the functioning. It's a statement about functioning. And the functioning is beholding. The view that is unlimited, the view that is illuminated in the precious mirror samadhi is open and clear. Beholding. Form beholds reflection. Form beholds, reflection beholds form. Is there anyone here who sees this? The permutations make 5 refers to the 5 ranks. The 5 ranks describe the passage out of the world we experience solely as external to self and all the ways of the self, and the passage to the self or the me being not so central to how we function in the world. In brief, this transformation is outlined in 5 stages, but this is just a method to look at these aspects. There aren't, outside of our experience, there are not 5 stages. It's just it's a conceptual frame. There is only our wisdom about the nature of life as it develops. There's only the natural course of our life of practice and awakening and attachment and freedom from attachment as both empty and full. Our life is both empty and full, as both undifferentiated and specific in form. So that's what the 5 ranks, if you've heard that term, the 5 positions. And I'm not a scholar in this, and some of you probably know much more about it than I, but I just want to give a general gist of it. And I hope I've got this right. So it begins with where we start, the first stage, as a person who's still immersed in suffering. But we're on the path since we've had a glimpse, however brief, and have some faith in practice. We have a peak. We have one of those pivotal moments of suchness. We sometimes call them peak experiences, where everything falls away except just the moment in all of its freshness and vitality. It feels, and when we have an experience like this, it's very intimate. It feels so familiar. And this wakes us up to the possibility. We've had a peek into remembering our most intimate self, our inmost self. And this is the start of practicing with diligence. So that's kind of in the first position. Then comes when you've attained some wisdom about the nature of your suffering, but are still focusing on suffering. It's like, a lot of us in sesshin will get really hung up, will get really caught by some pain or other. And that's our focus. And we no longer notice anything else beside the focal point of pain. Whereas there's all kinds of other stuff happening at the very same time. So Robert Aitken Roshi, my first teacher, encouraged us about this, saying, affirming, there is samadhi now and always. If you lose sight of it, simply say, I've lost sight of it, and start paying attention again. Since samadhi is our fundamental mind, you don't have to hold on to it as a state because it's freely available moment after moment. When we relax. So then after that, we could say awakening to emptiness. After a while of diligent practice with our hindrances and our vexations, we are no longer blocked by them. We no longer get caught irretrievably by torpor or restlessness or sensual desire, ill will, or skeptical doubt. No longer manifests externally. And the old things that used to be so troublesome don't bother us. We may think we're free and clear, but then you realize that actually they're still there. That placement is still in kind of a fixed energetic condition. Because some situation still comes up where you wrestle with reactivity. So then in the fourth position is called fundamental wisdom, where we emerge from the we have had an awakening to emptiness, and but it becomes much more filled with the particulars of life. We clarify the contingent. We experience the first morning of the world, where wisdom as such disappears because there's no suffering, and we can get caught in emptiness here and not wanting to engage with the messiness of the world. We can be very pure and hold on to that lovely, sweet, warm state of absorption and simplicity and quiet. But then we keep going. We always keep going, as long as we're alive, and I don't know about after that. And this is called, this phase is called wisdom beyond wisdom, having access to wisdom beyond wisdom, where there is no fixation on a self, where even suffering is wisdom. And the person is free to participate freely in the world with no particular personal hook back to suffering. But a very clear view in the nature of all things. Even in suffering, though it is discernible, it is not a problem. This is where there is no fear. You know that line from the Heart Sutra that says, when the mind is without hindrance, there is no fear. Fear is gone. A fear of even great difficulty is gone. Or it's at least in good company with precious mirror samadhi, with samadhi. The verse goes on to offer us the image of the 5-flavored herb. So it says, let's see, The exact words are, stacked together, they become 3. The permutations make 5, like the taste of the 5-flavored herb, like the 5-prong Vajra. So the 5-flavored herb is another image for one plant, from one plant having 5 flavors, right? One enlightened mind holding 5 positions, having access to great flexibility of heart and mind. Anyway, the 5-flavored herb refers to a berry that's called schisandra, that's used in Chinese medicine to balance the body's functions. It's often called the 5-flavored berry because it possesses all 5 of the basic flavors of Chinese herbal medicine: salty, sweet, sour, spicy, and bitter, all in one berry. Having these flavors means that it can benefit all 5 yin organs in that system of medicine: the liver, lungs, heart, kidneys, and spleen. 5 flavors, but one plant. Just as all these flavors of experience benefit us, the 5-flavored herb must be ingested and digested in order to function according to need. What is the taste of your life? What is the taste of this moment? What is the taste right now of Precious Mirror Samadhi? One taste, each taste of suchness. But this doesn't obliterate their difference. It may be the 5-flavored berry, but just at this moment, with this particular attention given, it is salty, like a salty potato chip. And in the very same place, a sour lemon slice. And a medjool date, maybe. Yum, sweet. And a jalapeno pepper. Wow. And a spoonful of turmeric. Ugh, bitter, bitter, bitter. I worked at a clinic a number of years ago, and we had somebody who was an herbalist who was really hot to get us all to use turmeric, a lot of turmeric. And she came in one day with a spoonful of honey that was completely honey and turmeric all mixed in together. And it was so bitter, even in the sweetness. I'll never forget that. Anyway, next line is like the 5-prong Vajra. The 5-prong of a Vajra, I don't know if you've seen a Vajra, used a lot in Tibetan practice. It has 5 branches or arcs, and was originally a weapon of war, but was adopted into Buddhism. And it became an expression of the brilliant strength of Buddha's enlightenment. It was an Indian symbol of wisdom and power over illusion and evil spirits. So the 5-prong Vajra consists of a central prong, a central part. At the heart of everything is vast openness. And arranging around it are the 4 other prongs that represent our increasing relationships to emptiness and openness that we traverse as we open and integrate and are transformed by Samadhi practice, by practicing this moment, just this. We can call this Samadhi, or we can call this just this, or we can call this Shikantaza. In this way, it's the Vajra is a potent image of complete interrelatedness, complete integration of form and emptiness. A Vajra, and I encourage you, if you have a chance to hold one and practice with it, it focuses awareness. It's very compressed. It has a really distinct energy to it and expresses the unity of how Dharma awakening functions. How even in the first rank of practice, the earliest days, at the earliest stages, we're partaking of the entirety of Dharma truth, whether we realize it or not, whether we're still in darkness and confusion. As long as we practice, and that wonderful line, like a fool, like an idiot, we can be so simple. Like a fool, like an idiot, which is how I felt for so many years of practice. Just to do this is called the host within the host, the epitome of suchness, even though we may not realize it. So may this be an encouragement to not demand anything from your practice, but to be able to be so simple that you can remain here. Just stay here. And allow the days of sesshin, which is such a rare opportunity to concentrate attention on just staying here. It's a treasure. Thank you.